Hello and welcome to my video on adding rational numbers. This is based off of 3.2 in the Math Makes Sense 9 textbook. So first of all, when we're talking about adding rational numbers, we have to remember what the definition of rational numbers are. And so if you haven't seen that video, please watch that video. Or if you don't remember what classification rational numbers are, please look at that video. Because that's going to be useful for simplifying and making common denominators. So we're going to start off by looking at something that's an integer, so it's a really simple rational number instead of a more complicated fraction. And so we're going to look at 4 plus negative 5. What does that equal? And so when we have a plus here, oops, wrong color of pen. When we have a plus here and then a negative, this is just like if we wrote 4 minus 5. Okay, it's the same thing. So if we had 4 minus 5, it would be negative 1. So hopefully this is just sort of a little bit of a reminder of where we came from. That's different, like grade 7 math. And so now we're going to go on to actually grade 9 math. So first of all, we've got some simple fractions going on here, but each fraction is still out of 8. The denominator is 8. So 5 eighths plus negative 3 eighths. What does that equal? Well, what we do is once the denominator is the same, we can just write that down, and then we add the top. Just like that. And now, if we remember from before, this is the same thing as writing 5 minus 3. And so 5 minus 3 is 2 over 8. And that's where you could end, or perhaps you might notice that we can simplify that by dividing by 2. So maybe I'll use a different pen here. Dividing by 2 simplifies it. Awesome. Now looking at the next question here, we have a slightly more complicated thing. We've got 2 over 3 plus 1/2. Slightly more complicated, but not too bad. We need to make it so that the denominators are the same. Currently, we have a 3 and we have a 2, so those are not the same. We need to find a way of making them the same. The way to do it, if you remember from our last video, is to multiply across. So the 2 multiplies to the whole side over here, and the 3 multiplies to the whole side over there. Okay, so when I do that, I'll have 2 over 3 times 2 plus 1/2 times 3. The 3 came from right over here, and the 2 came from right over here. So hopefully that's clear. So now if we actually do that, then we have 2 times 2 is, let's go with red, 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Then we have 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Now look at that. Now we have common denominator of 6 in both spots. Now we can do just like we did on the last question. So the only difference now is that we have to take this and put it into common denominators. Now if we add 4 plus 3, what do we get? 7/6. And that's our answer. Awesome. So those are fractional adding. Let's look at what it would be if we had a word problem. What could we see, and what would it be for decimals? So at the beginning of June, the Frosty Snowblower Company was $235.46 in debt. By the end of August, the company had increased its debt by $156.71. So part A says use a rational number to represent each amount. So the first amount here, let's see if I can highlight it for us. First amount is there in yellow. And if we're using a rational number, we have to remember that it's in debt. So that's why we put this little negative here. Negative 235.46. And then maybe another color here. The next number says increased its debt, so it's still debt and it's making the debt worse. The next number is negative because it's debt, and then the number, so 156.71. 156.71 cents. Okay, that's part A done. Calculate how much the company owed at the end of August. So it originally had this amount, 235, etc., and then they added more debt, 156, etc. So what we need to do is we need to write down the numbers, 235.46, and we need to add the debt. The tricky part is recognizing that when you add the debt, we're adding a negative. Okay, so hopefully fairly obvious to you guys. The same thing that we had earlier, the negative shows up. So positive and negative means that it's negative. So to write it more simply, I could write it like this. Negative 235.46 minus 156.71. Might be more simple for you, might not be. Okay, so hopefully from this we can see that they're both negative, so we just need to add the numbers and have a negative in front. So maybe I'll write it a different way. I like when I'm doing bigger numbers, I like to write it like this. So negative 235.46, negative 156.71. And just in case it's not obvious, we're adding these two negative numbers. So it's just like having the negative in there anyway. So like that. Then we add 6 plus 1, 7. 4 plus 7 is 11. Carrying the 1. 5 plus 6 is 11, plus the 1 carried before. Carrying a 1. 3 plus 5 is 8, plus the carried 1, 9. And 392.17. And that's a negative 392.17. So hopefully that helps you guys understand how to do decimal addition, decimal rational number addition, and rational number fraction addition. Good luck.